to A Well-Designed Business. My name is Luann Nigara, and I'm so glad you found this podcast. Together with my husband Vince and our partner Bill, we have grown our company Window Works from the ground up. So I know and I understand the challenges you face in running your interior design business. I also know that your talent alone isn't enough to ensure your success. So on this podcast, we talk about strategies and practical steps to help you grow your business. But make no mistake about it, we have our share of fun here too, mixed in with those aha moments that I love so much. This isn't fluff. Nobody has time for that. Whether you are a new interior designer or a seasoned designer, I am here to help you create and to manage the kind of interior design firm that you dream of. It's straight talk and it's action. Are you ready? Let's get started. Hi, welcome to another episode of A Well-Designed Business. The dynamic duo behind Circle is with me today. Husband and wife John and Theresa Dorlini made a pinky swear promise in 2001 to build a design empire when they were on their first official date at a sushi restaurant in downtown Tempe. The backstory is that John and Theresa went to high school together, and John had always regretted losing touch with the prettiest girl in their handdrafting class. Theresa's family relocated to Thailand, and then 10 years later, John saw that pretty girl again in a bar, and the rest, as they say, is history. In fact, this fun-loving couple vowed on their wedding day to love, honor, cherish each other through good design and bad design. Today, they love spending time with their 4 kids, attending architect lectures on date nights, watching design and fashion documentaries before bed, and sleeping in a bed without crumbs in it. Circle Design Studio is located in Roanoke, Virginia, and its services include full-service interior design, architecture, and general contracting. Before meeting John and Theresa, take a moment to check out Article and their trade program at welldesigned.article.com. At Article, they have high-quality, mid-century, Scandinavian-inspired furniture for your next interior design project. And the trade program, this is what I love, is managed and handled by experienced interior designers who know exactly what you do each day in your job. So this makes it so that they know exactly how to help you get it done faster, easier, and without any hassles. Visit welldesigned.article.com today and open your trade account. Now, let me introduce you to the principals of Circle, John and Theresa Dorlini. Hi, John. Hi, Theresa. Thanks so much for joining me on A Well-Designed Business today.
Hi, Luann. Thank you.
So
Thanks
you
for having
guys,
us.
yes, you know, it's so funny. You're both just a nice, demure, calm hello, and I know better because I met you guys in person at High Point, and there's Teresa. She's starting to come out. We're gonna get this girl going.
Yes, you know.
I loved meeting you too. We were at the Swain Furniture Showroom where Charles Pavarini and Randall Tarasuk were having their soft launch of their new furniture line, and Dwayne was there and Bob was there, and we all got to meet each other. That was such a fun night at High Point, wasn't it?
Yes, we have started to affectionately call Charles CP3. That's his name for us.
Well,
I think it's going to catch on.
That's it. Wait till I hit him with that. That's going to be funny.
Hashtag CP3.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Well, I know Charles and Randall many, many, many years. I've been very fortunate to be one of their window treatment suppliers and, you know, doing lots of projects for them. And so I was so happy to be there to share in this opening for them. So it was a soft launch of about 10 pieces, and coming this spring is going to be the big launch of a more extensive line of furniture. So big shout out and congrats to Charles and Randall with that. Yes, exactly. So here's the thing. You two are, as I described in the introduction, husband and wife team of architect interior designer. And I thought that it would be nice to have this conversation about the best practices for working together, both architect to designer and designer to architect, because of course our audience is by and by mostly interior designers. So we're interested in knowing, you know, the ways that it's what it is you want to be a valuable team member, right? Mm-hmm. And so, but at the same time, you don't want to be marginalized. You don't want to be like, well, you're just the designer, because there's no such thing as being just the designer. But I think obviously as business partners and as life partners, you have a particular insight into this. So who wants to start with, I guess what I want to do, I'm going to tell you what, this is what I would love to start with. Let's take an example. Someone who is completely new to the world of building a home, being involved in an architecture project of any sort, is building a house, and they have an architect and they're working with the architect to design the home. They've got a builder lined up. They've got a piece of land, and they're thinking to themselves, I've got an architect. I've got a builder. I'm good. I don't need a designer in that mix. What do each of you, both as the architect and the designer, say to that scenario?
I think the interior designer can bring a lot to the process in terms of asking questions of the client that maybe the architect and builder may not have asked. They're concerned with the structure, they're concerned with code, they're concerned with building costs, but how it really functions day to day and also on those special occasions. I think interior designers can really enhance and bring to the table just more in-depth thought to the interior space.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, John's background, his undergrad is in interior design too. So we like to say that he's a good architect, but he is. Yeah.
And we can give plenty of examples when we were just solely the interior designer on a job where there was an architect, there was a builder. We were the last ones on the job. And when we came in, met with the client, we had to break the news to them that, all this stuff you just told us, like, you don't have that. They are not literate in reading floor plans and elevations and things like that, like we can. So we end up kind of cleaning up the mess towards the end. And at that point, we're looked at the enemy because we're driving up costs and change orders when really, it didn't meet the client's expectations.
Yeah. There have been so many times when we've come in at the end and what 95% of the population just cannot read 2D drawings. They just don't know. We had one client where we came in, they had already poured the foundation, and she did not realize until we modeled her interior space in 3D, she did not realize that she did not have a foyer.
Oh, that's a pretty big gap in the communication between the architect, the builder, and the client.
Yes, a little bit.
So what's happening there? So it's not that, bad architect, bad builder. It's what you're describing, John. It's not their primary concern. They have so many other high-level concerns that are legitimate, like you described, with code and construction costs, that they just can't drill all the way down to these details that are the details that create the final living environment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So now that's established, the importance of the designer. Can you tell me, so you guys, it sounds like sometimes you have the whole project. Sometimes a client comes to you and says, hey, Circle Design Studio, I want you to be my architect of record. I also want you to be my design firm of record. Let's do this and create this whole project together. So that's easy to understand. And of course, then we only have to worry about if you two are getting along, right?
Pretty much. But when we have the big fights, those are the projects that turn out really, really great. Yeah, we've chronicled that.
Okay. But let's take it when you are not, like, so now a peer listening is not married to the architect, has to go into the architect's world. And so take it from each of you from your perspective. John, take it from now, I wonder if you'll be able to be objective on this, because your firm does both, you really truly get the value of having the designer involved from the beginning. But can you recall or put yourself in the place of when a designer gets invited in and the architect is sort of like, what is this person doing here and changing my ideas?
Yeah.
This is truth time, guys, okay?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there's a ton of, so here's the thing. That we find that out a lot, but it is why we invest so much in our 3D visualizations, because at the end of the day, the proof is in the pudding. The owner is getting to see it for the first time, maybe during the whole process, because not everyone makes it part of their standard practice to invest in the visualizations. Mm-hmm. So we walk them through the house and we say, did you realize, you don't have a foyer? Did you realize that you're going to need a bunch of window shades here because the sun's going to be blaring out at sunset?
Yeah.
Did you realize you don't have
facing.
you have a view of the lake because your architect has your, cooktop facing a wall. So it's just simple things like that where we walk them through and show them everything.
And what is the program that you use for those 3D design models?
We start off using SketchUp for everything. And then once we get approval on the design, then we'll bring it into a CAD software like Revit.
Okay. So you can create these in SketchUp, and that's not the 3D. But once you have, or am I incorrect? And then it's not 3D, and then you have approval, and then you go, okay, let's blow it up to 3D with Revit.
SketchUp is 3D.
It is.
And we like that because it's very intuitive to use. So as a designer, you can work through several iterations. You can have layers. You can turn them on and off. You can save views. You can export still images. You can export videos. We have a ton of them on our YouTube channel. So we find that as the design process, it's very quick to work through ideas, get approval on the early first try, and then roll into the construction drawings after that.
Yeah, I think if you approach the project where you're not designing in 3D from the beginning and you're doing 2D drawings from the beginning and then thinking, hey, we now have to extrude, these approved plans into 3D, we work the exact opposite way. We understand that we have to model everything in 3D in SketchUp, and SketchUp is so easy and fast that we're able to do it. And then once it's approved, we go into, Revit. If you were to model the 3D in Revit, it's pretty time consuming. I mean, the two components talk to each other, so like the 2D part and the 3D part, but there's still a rendering process time, and it's not as intuitive as SketchUp. I mean, the reason why SketchUp is called that is because you should be able to hash out ideas quickly.
Okay, so what do you think? Is it an expensive program to have, or you're saying it's easy to do, but is there a learning curve? Like, why do it's like I've heard of these programs before. Different people have mentioned it on the show. Obviously, I'm not a designer. I don't use them, but it seems like to me no brainer. Then why are they expensive? What's the block that any entry level designer would not be doing these?
Well, the good news is that SketchUp, you can experiment on the free version. The paid version, I think, could be upwards around $500 or $600, and then
which is really reasonable
for a year. We're saying,
yeah,
or forever, like you buy it.
It's forever, but the support may run out, or there's certain upgrades that in later versions that but you don't have to pay for a whole new version. You pay like an upgrade fee at a fraction of that cost. So it's very cost effective, I think. The other thing I'll touch on that Theresa didn't mention why we use SketchUp is the power in SketchUp is there's a whole library of components that are out on the web that you can just insert into your model. So rather than draw pillows and blankets and everything from scratch, you can just insert them, change the texture, pattern, color, import from an actual product. And it's called entouraging. You just make it look like how it's going to look like when it's finished. So usually when we're brought in the beginning, oh, no, just give me the plans. We're like, no, we're going to give you plans and the furniture. We're going to show you what it's going to look like as it's supposed to be occupied, and not think of it till the very end and realize the TV's on the wrong wall, the window's the wrong shape. Well,
no, I mean, we've had so many instances where we've, come in when there was maybe an architect and a builder or just a builder, and after they occupy the space, they just realize that no furniture really fits in it.
Wow.
Which I'm like, if I just spent that much money building a house, I'd kind of be pissed.
Right. There's no good wall for the TV. There's no good wall for, yes, I know. It's horrible, right? So the thing is, I'm going to have to start paying attention more often. I feel like my baby designers are not just getting SketchUp as a like, hey, I open business and I put $500 towards this, because that seems like a no-brainer.
That is a no-brainer.
And I'll add this too, for about $20 or $30 a month, you can go to lynda.com. I think it's lynda.com, and they have tutorials, and it's a month-to-month subscription for any software that's out there that will take you through any software you can imagine, and they have tutorials.
But this is the thing, Luann, is, John is very technological. He can pick up programs quickly. He's like a millennial. I am a little bit of a dinosaur. I mean, the last CAD program I used was like AutoCAD 2000. So that tells you the last time that I had to draft for myself, so I'm like, that's why I decided to be the boss. But it's, I mean, if I can pick it up and not have any support and just kind of go over to John or, our junior designer, Stephanie or Emily, and just say, hey, how do I do this? Anyone can pick it up.
Okay. Well, and I think that's important. And one time I remember SketchUp being mentioned. First of all, Jason Byrne was on the television show. You see, there's that little Freudian slip, right? That's right. Okay, universe, right? No. Jason Byrne was on the show one time, and he's a designer from Australia, and he also happens to be a professor teaching interior design students. And so he went through a series of all the tools that were important for a designer to have and understand and work their way through. And it was very helpful and informative. So I know that he mentioned both of these. And then the other one that I specifically remember mentioning, it was Darla Powell. And Darla, well, I remember her saying, because she came on the show when she was only 7 months in business, and she was killing it, right? And then a year later, it made the first 7 months look like she was asleep. Like a year later, it was like, whoa, right? And so
That's
did,
awesome.
it was amazing, and she's so good. And we did a Where Are They Now show a year later, and one of the things that she shared in that Where Are They Now show was that from the beginning, she invested in her case, if I'm remembering it correctly, she not only invested in having these as part of every project, the SketchUp thing, but in the beginning when she had so many things to learn and she didn't want to sit and learn this, or she was doing it, she said, and it was taking her 6 hours or 8 hours, she invested in hiring somebody freelance to do it, which in an hour or 2 hours, they did what she would do in 6. And she said that it literally upped her game to the client as far as professionalism, and she was able to charge more from the beginning of her baby design firm as opposed to waiting 5 years and saying, okay, now I really know everything, let me up my fees.
Yeah. I mean, amen. Here, cheers.
Yeah.
But the great thing about SketchUp is really every single, good design program, university program is using SketchUp. It's a given. So you can find, an intern who's affordable, who can come, work for you hourly, or, it doesn't have to be, someone who's freelancing for their profession.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I love it. Okay. So this is very important. So from your standpoint, the philosophy is that whether you are doing the build from architect and including design, or you two as designers have been invited in to do the design on somebody else's plan, the first thing that you do is you take this architect's plan and you put it up to 3D so that the client can truly visualize the hallways, the mudrooms, the entry, and say, oh, heck no, I'm missing a foyer.
Yeah, exactly. And I'll even say we're negotiating a project right now where we're saying that right now. They already have plans, and I'm like, there's some missed opportunities. And they're like, oh, really? And I'm like, yeah, we're going to do this in 3D. We're going to call it a design audit. We're going to show you what this builder or this draftsman gave you, and we're going to show you our version. And that's where the power of SketchUp comes in, where you can do, here's one version, and then turn off some layers, and then here's a new version. Here's what we would do. And 10 times out of 10, they always choose ours.
Well, and I think the great thing, too, is, you said, earlier in the conversation, it's not just the architect, being a bad architect, or the builder being a bad builder. It's a disconnect in what they think the client needs to see. Right. So, if I'm sitting there and I'm a client and I've been on Houzz for a year pulling pictures, or I've been on Pinterest for a year pulling pictures, you think that the architect or the builder are picking up on all of those qualities, and they may not be. I mean, they're worried about making sure that the plan is there. So I think it's that disconnect. And when you can see everything modeled in 3D, and you can get, kind of the textures. And then we also use Morpholio as an accompany software to SketchUp, where we create these mood boards that accompany the SketchUp, because SketchUp is limited unless you use another plugin for photorealistic.
Okay. Understood. Okay. All right. So this is awesome. So now let's get into a little bit of that relationship. So I'm a consumer. I'm building a house. I'm in a relationship, obviously, already with my architect and my builder. My friend says to me, you should hire a designer. And I've broken ground. Maybe, foundation is in. Maybe we're not too far along. And the designer comes in and does what you've done. They've put this on 3D. And now the client goes back to the builder and the architect and says, hey, guys, ladies, whatever, you didn't, I don't have a wall for my TV. And now the architect wants to do, obviously has to do new drawings, has to price for that. Is there that stickiness where it's like, is there a way that is it up to the consumer? That's my question. Is it up to the consumer to walk that through to the architect, or is it up to the designer as the professional to then figure out the gaps based on the consumer's reaction and walk it through to the architect? Tell us about that relationship.
Well, so the scenario that you outlined, if the designer is working for the client, the designer is obligated to the client to tell them what they think, and the client needs to go talk to the builder and architect. In some cases we can go side by side and tell them, but what other designers may not have that we have is the architecture background to call them out if they try to charge you unreasonable change order fees or try to tell you it's not possible. It's kind of like that scenario where you go see a mechanic and they start throwing out all these words that you don't know.
Right. It's like, okay, here's $5 million, fix my car.
Exactly. So we also add that layer of accountability to make sure that the client isn't getting screwed at the end of the day.
I think the stickiness that you're talking about, it can definitely be there, but we always enter in and say, do you want us just to pick finishes to the architect's design, or are we designing? I mean, am I doing a custom fireplace for you? What are the limitations? Give us our boundaries. And I think we usually now, after some sticky situations, try to have that initial meeting with the client and the architect before the client just brings us in. So that the architect feels like they're kind of interviewing us, and that they have some say. And I feel like if we have that discussion early on, it tends to go better. And so we try to push for that. We try to push the client to make that introduction first and make the architect feel like they, have some say. I mean, they're going to hire us anyway, but let them at least feel like they have some say.
Right. I like that idea. So you're being proactive, and you're suggesting that a designer be proactive and suggest that, why don't we have the meeting, all of us at the table, and let your architect ask me questions, let me ask the architect questions, let you understand each of our roles and how we play into it. And also what you're saying is, you're asking the client to define their expectations for your part in the process.
Correct.
Okay. And then the thing is, as the professional in the room between yourself and the consumer, you are also explaining what those expectations could look like. We could simply do surface finishes and furnishings. We could put information and opinion towards the width of the hallways or where the chair rails go. So tell me what you want. Here's what different things I could be helpful with.
Yeah, I think that's the discussion. It's defining the roles and just having that comfort level and knowing what you're expected to do.
Right.
And I would add to that too, while we're negotiating our contracts they can be very long, but there's a good page or two that shows you everything that we can do. You may not want to hire us for 90% of it, but it just at least let them know what your capabilities are. We can do the 3D, we can pick out the finishes, we can procure the fixtures, we can procure the furniture, we can design custom furniture, we can do construction drawings, we can be involved during construction, we can come in after construction, do the staging, so let them know what all your capabilities are a la carte, and have them check out what they want to hire you for.
I think and where we're at an advantage now is we have a body of work that we can say, here's a project where we came in, after they broke ground. Here's a project where we did, a new kitchen, minimal finish changes, knocked out a couple of walls, and then did furnishings and fixtures and things like that. So they can kind of see it. I think the proof is kind of in the pudding, because the projects where we have all of the control. So we're the interior designer, we're the architect, and we're also a Class A contractor. When we have full control over that, and we go and we get to do the furniture and we get to stage, it looks like it should be in a magazine. So that is consistent with what they want. Their vision, their Pinterest books, their, house idea books, they want the magazine. And what people don't understand is there's a process to get to that, and you have to, it doesn't just happen. No one, I don't just go in, and wave my magic wand and it happens. There's a whole process of gleaning the information from the client and making sure that you're understanding and making sure that the words that you're using are the same. That's why images are powerful in terms of discussing, wants and needs and aesthetic, because if I say modern, my modern means totally different than someone else's modern. I'm thinking I want to live in a concrete house, and concrete and glass house, and I would be perfectly happy with that. But someone else is thinking that it's it's rustic modern or something.
Right.
Words are just words, and that's where images help.
Exactly. Okay. And so in there, what I'm hearing is, one of the things I actually heard you say that I want to say out loud, because I actually just expressed this to a one-on-one coaching client the other day that has an opportunity pending. And I said the same thing. And I said it from the standpoint of what I would want as a consumer. I've never had a designer express to me that they did it. And every time I say that, I don't mean to say that nobody's ever done it. I just hadn't heard it before. And what I said to this particular designer was, tell me, as the consumer, everything you can do, because this was a pre-getting together, pre-break ground project. I said, tell me at phase 1, working with the architect, what your role is there and what you can provide. Tell me when the builder gets involved, what your role is and what you can provide. Tell me during the construction process, what your role is and the steps and the processes that you can provide. Then tell me, then the next phase is procurement, what you can do and what you could provide. And then installation. I said, put it all out for me. Let me see it. Because if you let me see that each of these, that not only is there 7 or 8 or 10 phases to take a house from ground up, but in each of those phases, there's 10 or 15 or 12 things that you can do. Now you're not trying to say, but I'm really important and I'm valuable. It's like, I can go, whoa, how could I even think I could do this without you?
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. And it's always, when designing a website, it's the least sexiest page on the site because it's very word heavy and they want to see images, but we feel like it is very important to describe that process. Our typical interview, we're lugging a laptop to show 3D, an iPad to show Morpholio, a set of drawings, and final photos off of a website or something. And what we're in the process of doing right now is create a coffee table book that has it all out that we can leave behind for a client to keep out, to marinate on. They have friends over and they see it, and it's good marketing for us. And maybe we include a self-addressed stamp envelope. They send it back to us when they're done, or they don't decide to hire us, or the project's done. So we're getting to the point where our portfolio's robust enough, we have enough process images to put it in book form so we can use that as a sales item.
Yeah. I mean, the clients who are well prepared and who have done their research on us, because I'll say, well, let me show you the mood board for this. And they said, oh yeah, I saw that, because they're digging and they want to see how we get to that point. How do we get to these final images, these, the final photo shoot of a project? And so they'll do their digging. But, we have a YouTube channel that has our 3D fly-throughs. We have most of our mood boards on Pinterest. And then, we do just a little bit on Instagram. And that's as much as we're kind of willing to do at this point. But if they dig, they can go to those different sources. So what we're trying to do is make it easy. If there's an introductory email, sometimes I'll just send those links and say, here's the fly through of this project. Here's the mood board of this project. And then just give it to them so that it's easy for them to see it. And then here's a final photo. But if we can kind of, I guess, pull that all together in a comprehensive form, a little book that we can give them, I think that it's feeding it to them on a platter.
Very much. And the thing is, you mentioned coffee table book, and then the possibility of having them return it to you. So that it says to me that a higher production cost for you, but could it be, maybe I'm being completely naive, but couldn't it be like a Shutterfly book, like that you put together and it costs you $20 and you don't care if they return it, right?
Yeah, it totally could be.
Right.
And I think that there are different, I guess, price points of projects, so, but Shutterfly, we've done Shutterfly books before. And of course, they can be $20. And that's a small investment for, if it lands you the job easily.
Right. Well, and the funny thing is we haven't talked about the Shutterfly books as portfolio shares on the show before, but I have, with WindowWorks, I've given it thought and this and that and the other thing. But here's the new part of it that your conversation just sparked in me is the process book, right? So someone that is struggling with, because here's what I know to be true. You guys, you two that I'm talking to, and you, the greater audience that I'm talking to, I know you think it's clear what you do, but it's not. It's not. It is not. And I know that it shocks you that it's not, but I promise you it's not. And it's just like how I counseled this designer with making this pitch to the potential client. I said, you know what you do so well, and you know that there's 10 phases of this build, and you know that each phase has 16 steps. I don't know that. I don't know that. I just think, what's the big deal? Just help me, decorate this house as we build it, right? But I can see if you gave a book and the book was, there's the blank plot of land and there's the foundation going in and there's the drywall, the sticks going up and then the drywall, and then you start to get to progress shot, backsplash going in, and then end it with some photography at the end that maybe you were, fortunate enough to, even if you're not fortunate enough to include design to completion, you're fortunate enough to just get to paint. The house is painted, right? And the floors are stained and finished. That's very powerful for a consumer to go, there's a lot more involved in this than I realized.
Yeah, definitely.
Right?
Yeah.
Right?
And I think where we are right now is that we're at a point where we can say this is a tried and true process. So us working in 3D, these are our steps. It follows pretty much the architectural model for it. So programming, schematic design, design development, construction drawing, so on. We have a track record of being successful, and we're finally, after 13 years in business, being able to say, you can't cut out those steps.
I love it.
Yeah.
And Luann, you met me, so I like to eat. I love using like gourmet cooking or being a chef as an analogy, because sometimes when they say, oh, well, we don't want that 3D or we don't want this, so I'm like, well, that's like telling a chef he can't use these appliances to cook. It's like and then it also helps, that analogy helps when you're negotiating a fee. And I learned this from one of the an interior design book Theresa had, but it just talks about this question of markup and, making money is bad and profit and all this other stuff.
Yeah, right.
And it's like, well, look, you can buy the same ingredients any restaurant can. What you're paying for is our knowledge and knowledge of ingredients and methods and how to cook something that you don't want to do at home. So that's our expertise that you're paying for. So, I like to speak in analogies when negotiating, but telling them, it is about the process. If we're a chef, they take into account seasons and organic and cooking methods.
When is the best time to pick this tomato?
And what's the wine for this palette and all this other stuff? I mean, people understand that in terms of food, but not design.
It's so funny because I literally over email just 2 days ago, a designer emailed me and said, I heard the episode on Collaborate to Win with Heather McManus, and she said, and I just find that I struggle with charging the full markup to clients because I understand that I'm in business to make money, but I feel like, I don't want to take advantage of a client and I want to make sure I provide. And what's so funny, John, is I literally came back with the exact same description. I said, listen, you're forgetting your value in putting that together. I said, here's how you can understand it. I said, you can go to the store and buy a filet mignon. You can you can drive there, you can shop for it, you can buy it, you can bring it home, you can cook it, you can season it. And even if you can do it really well and it costs you $15 plus all your time, don't you sometimes want to go into a restaurant and have the chef cook it for you, and you'll give him $45 for that same piece of meat because it's an experience. And I said, do not shy away from what you bring. You're not just bringing furniture to a client. You're bringing your experience on the scale of the furniture, the fabric on the furniture, the style of the furniture. It's not just, and that's your money. That's how you get paid.
Yes,
it is. Yeah. And I mean, selling yourself short, I think that comes down to, that's the creative side of interior designers, because we're kind of like, oh, John always gets on me because, I go through this phase because design comes so easily for me, like visualizing, spaces and, sketching things in 3D and, just all of that comes very easy. I can hear what the client is saying. I can look at the images. I know where they're going. That's intuitive for me. And, it's years of practice, but I think that everyone else can do it.
Right.
And so the person who goes out and says, oh, well, sure, I'm going to go buy my, spend $15 and I'm going to make the steak. I'm like, it's probably not as good as like a 3 Michelin star restaurant. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
And that's exactly what it's going to be. You go in sometimes where, there are people who think that because they watch so much HGTV, they can do what we do. And that's fine. There are definitely people who are talented at decorating or making nice little vignettes and things like that. But there's, it's a little bit insulting for our profession, architecture and interior design, because I feel like we're one of the only professions where people come in and say, oh, sure, I can totally do that. I don't need any training. Right. I mean, I don't know lawyers. I don't know doctors. I don't know CPAs, any of these people. It's just really, it's a shame. Right. It's a shame that's how some people see it.
And it does start with you as the designer, like you said, getting past that hurdle of forgiving yourself, actually, that it is easy and passionate and joyful for you to do. None of that means that you're not entitled to make money for doing it.
Well, I think the thing is, I always say my currency, is boxes of diapers. We have 4 kids and I'm like, boxes of diapers are expensive. And that's when I can get over it because it's not just me, out there saying, oh, I have to, support myself. No, I have health insurance for 4 kids. I have, 5 employees, you have to make a living. And I think it's hard in the beginning because you have to take, or you feel like you have to take every project just to survive. But I'm like, if you can stick in it, like when you're young and have the energy, go for it. And it will pay off, and just believe that you can do it and believe that you have value, because you will get to a point. I mean, when John and I finally got to a point where we could say no to a project, we're like, hallelujah. Right. Because I could sense it, and I could say, whoa, they're going to be difficult. I'm like, I don't want to take it. And you don't, and it's great.
So let's have a little conversation about that, because that is also a big learning curve. That is, it is something that every business owner needs to go through, but I do feel that designers are challenged by it more than other professions, because I'm going to tell you why. Look, you're a GP, a general practitioner, doctor, right? We all know, if we have any friends that are doctors, that they have patients that they don't really love, that they are a pain in the neck, and they are supposed to have a 15-minute visit and they want to talk to you about every godforsaken thing, right? But here's the difference. That doctor is going to see likely that patient once a year for their checkup. You are going to work with a client for 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10 months, right? And so it's when every profession faces the challenge of recognizing a client that is not good for their business system, their model, their personality, their anything, I think it is more difficult for you as a profession to say no to them, because as a profession, you are nurturers, carers, you see the project opportunity, right? But B, it's more difficult to say no because it's not like a doctor where 15 patients are coming in the door afterwards, and you know what I mean? But it's actually more important for you to say no because you are going to have such sustained engagement with them. So talk to us a little bit about, is it simply a matter of you have heard the voice in your head that the client is not a good fit and you've gone ahead and it's each time been bad until you finally just say uncle? Or how you tell us about that process, because every one of your peers has experienced it.
Mm-hmm. So one of the things that we've done recently that's been a huge help in helping us decide what is a good fit for us or not, it was a suggestion out of this book I have in front of me, The Business of Design, Balancing Creativity and Profitability. It
By
had
who?
in there
By who?
Keith Granite.
Okay. I think somebody just mentioned this on a recent episode as well.
It's
okay.
a great book.
And it's great because it was a former employee of Gensler, and it's written for architects and interior designers and covers everything that would be important to each of those businesses. And one of the things, this is our 13th year in business. One of the things it suggested that we had not done was create a list of core values and come up with a mission statement. And we're in the process, right? And we're in the process of doing a vision statement. We have something, we just haven't released it yet, but it was something that we involved the employees because we said, look, you know us. What are our core values? And we came up with about 12, and we narrowed it down to about 6. And then from those 6 core values, we developed a mission statement that described the kind of work that we want to do. And the interesting thing was, as we wrote it, it described the opposite of every client we hated, So it was like, okay, we know what we don't want to do.
Hate is a strong word, John.
It's like
we're among friends.
They might be listening.
So it was almost like it was easier to describe the work that you don't want to do, but using that to write the mission statement for the work that you want to do. And then whenever you have a project come to you and say, okay, is this consistent with our core values? Is this consistent with our mission statement? Do our clients see this and appreciate it and understand it? Or are they just looking for someone to come and pick finishes? Because, we can do that, but that's not what we're about. You know?
I mean, if you get slow, you might take that. I mean, we typically don't, but, you never know. There are little dips where you have to balance and see the workflow that's in there and make sure everyone's busy. But we're at a point right now, and I'm going to tell you it's glorious that then when you can finally not pick and choose, because that sounds a little bit snotty, but we're able to see the clients who are going to value. They know, from the first meeting that we are different, that we are a different kind of firm.
And I'll tell you what, after we had done the core values and mission statement, I put it into practice. We had a client who was negotiating us. They're trying to lowball. And they said, well, we were told to pay X amount of dollars for what we want to hire you for. And I said, you know what? You should go hire them.
Right. I love that. That's great. That's so awesome. Go ahead. Bye-bye.
Well, guess what? He came back and paid what we wanted.
Right.
We've done, and it's under construction now. And we just got their next door neighbor's job. So it's like, stick to your guns, have principles, but writing it down and put it on the wall or put it somewhere that remind you, this is what you believe in. This is why you get up every morning.
Yeah, this is why you get up. But again, I have to stress, if you are a young designer, maybe inexperienced, I mean, you have to be competent. I mean, technically competent. And if you have those things, you will get there. Don't just think that it's it's all about me. I get to wave my magic design wand and everything is fine. And design is a service industry. We serve the client. And if you don't realize that and you think that it's only about your artistic, fulfillment, it's the wrong business for you.
I agree. I mean, the thing about it is that we've talked about it often on the show. Working with the luxury market, there are a couple of criteria. You really do need to be good at what you do. Right. Yep. You need to. And the thing about it is that the luxury client will pay for somebody who is clearly good at what they do. And then so mixed into that is having the ability to convey what you do very clearly, very professionally, and, with the ability to create the vision of what it's like to be in your firm and your experience. That's how you pull them in, right? And then what happens is, I always say to the baby designers that I'm talking to is, once you pull them in and once you create that vision, when they want to push you back and say, yeah, but I want it for this much money, or I want you to take that off, it makes it so much easier to say, yes, I'm sorry, but I bring so much value to the table. I cannot do it for less. You don't have to purchase it with me. You do not have to engage with me. But they want you, so they come back. And also, don't you agree? Look, in every business, there is room for the possibility that there may be some push and pull, give and take within the course of a project on to areas that may be negotiated, right? But I feel very strongly it's not in the beginning. In the beginning, if somebody asks you to lower your fees right off the bat, then you just know that there isn't a single invoice that you send them that they will take seriously.
Yeah, exactly. And what I always tell, and it took a while, we don't want to say that we're so great at doing this from the beginning, but if someone is trying to lower your fee, do not lower your fee. Nope. Suggest that you reduce the scope. So, I mean, there's different components that add to the cost of that. You say, okay, well, maybe we can't tackle the kitchen plus the master bathroom for what you want to pay, but we can do this. We will reduce the scope, but I'm not changing my hourly rate. Right. I'm not changing, how much my worth is, because I know what I bring to the table.
Right. Exactly. And the other is to say, I might not be the designer for you, but I have a friend that I can refer to you. Right.
Yeah, definitely.
So tell me a little bit about the hard no. So a potential client has reached out to you, you've had some initial conversations, and you now regroup back at your office, and the two of you, maybe in concert with your staff, have decided that this client does not fit into your mission and does not value your core values, okay? And you've got to go back and say, thanks, but no thanks. We're not interested in taking this project. Talk to me. So this is different than somebody says, hey, I want to move forward, but I don't want this much per hour. I want this much per hour. This is somebody that you're just like, there's not enough money on the planet. We're not working with you, right? Like the hard no. Tell me about, because that's a hard conversation. Can you recall any client that you had to just say the hard no to, and how you felt about going into that conversation and how it went?
I think you can always be nervous. I mean, if you've had several meetings with them and then decide that, usually if it's just the first meeting where you kind of initially know that it's not a right fit, and you've gone through your core values and you've seen, is this a project and are these clients that value the same thing? If you go through that and it's just not a good fit, I feel like honesty is the best policy. Just say that we're really busy right now, and it's just not a project that we want to take on. And I mean, it can sound like you're not trying to insult them. It's just you have to make a decision. I just feel like transparency and being honest is the way to do it, because every time, and I think you mentioned this earlier, every time we have gone against the instinct, where you walk in and the husband and wife are fighting like cats and dogs in the first meeting, and it's just like, oh my gosh, this is going to be horrible. Right. Every time we've gone against it, I mean, the gut feeling has been right. There's a reason it's there. Right.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, I just feel like we know it. We always know it. I don't know. I don't care if it's my employees. I do it with Kimberly all the time. She'll say to me, I'm not sure how to handle this. And I go, yes, you do. Tell me. And she'll just look at me. I'm like, no, just tell me. There's nobody here, just me and you. Tell me. And, it's just say it out loud. Try it on. And then the more you describe it, you're like, this is exactly the right path. This is the right way to do this. And I also 100% agree with having honesty as part of the hard no, because when you make up a reason, then somebody can take care of that reason, and now you're like, oh, well, that was a fake reason, now I need another reason.
Exactly. And that has happened, and so you realize that you have to just be honest and say, this is a no, because it's oh, wait, now I'm, divorced, so we won't be fighting and,
yes,
whatever.
Right.
I'm like, no.
Perfect example, right?
Not going to be right.
Right. I kicked him out, so we don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, exactly. And you're like, no, because I saw how you.
You're going to talk to me like you talked to him.
And when you have done it long enough, you realize that, and you realize your temperament too. I mean, John is I think we're both firm, but I am definitely more emotional and will take things more personally. He can go to sleep at night, but I will take it personally. And I know that about myself. I can't, my mind can't be caught up with this, and I can't be so emotionally invested in that because, we have to be invested in each other. We have to take care of our kids. There's all of these things. So if you know that someone's going to be an emotional strain on you, walk away.
Right. Now, tell me about when we're, several months into a project. Have you ever had a situation where you are in the project, there's contracts on the table, and it has just been, pulling the train uphill? Are there phases or ways to then extricate yourself from a situation that is just toxic?
And we have, just like I said, our contract is several pages long. We also have very long general conditions, and it talks about, what are the grounds and what are the notices given for termination of agreement. We have one right now where it's an addition, it's a mudroom, and we kind of help set up a builder, and we're going to send a letter that we're probably going to quit the job because they're slow on getting us answers. So we're getting a backlog of work. We're not going to be responsive when they're ready. And I think they also have some family issues going on, illness in the family. But, you got to be sensitive to that. Mm-hmm. But there are other signs that they were just kind of flaky and not making their decisions. And it's turning out not to be a good fit for us. And so we could always fall back to contract. And that's where Theresa says, she's emotional. I tend to be more, what did we agree to? Let's point to the contract, and we're just going to do what we all agreed to do, and
in writing. And that's where in writing saves your butt.
In DocuSign, yes.
Right. Yeah, DocuSign is great.
Right. And so that's an interesting point, because I have had, it's typically firms like yourselves that are at the higher level of the game here. I want to say it was either Laura Umansky or Marie Flanagan. I want to say it was one of those women.
I'm going to have to look those episodes up.
Yes, I feel like one of those mentioned that in their contract was that if we send a question out to you or approval out to you, and if you take 2 weeks or more to answer that question, they charge you additional hours. I don't recall how many hours, because they have to refamiliarize themselves with the project. Right?
Oh yeah. And the thing that is so funny is when the client, calls you when it's been cold for, 3 weeks or something like that, and then automatically expects you to remember every single
detail. What was the paint color again?
Yeah. And I'm like, let me go back. That's why we have spreadsheets and we have finished schedules. I'm like, and they look at you like, oh, you don't remember every detail? I'm like, hey, we've got 30 projects going on right now.
Right.
Not that yours is not important, but we have systems in place so that we don't lose that information. Right. I don't have it, I might remember that it's a, whatever, Sherwin-Williams shoji white if it's something that we use regularly, but I'm not going to remember everything.
Right. And so then you do have it in your contract that they have to pay X amount of additional hours for you to pull the whole thing out and put it back on your desk and refamiliarize before you start going again.
Well, I'm not opposed to adding that to our general conditions, but I'll tell you, we did change our contract recently to include fractions of hours for billing for new information that was revealed later on. So that has come into play sometimes, when they want to add things that they didn't say up front. So it's like, oh, the budget's X amount of dollars, and all of a sudden they find money that doubles it. I was like, well, wait a second, that changes everything.
And not just because they have more money, but because they decided to add 2,000 more square feet, I mean, there's things to protect yourself. Definitely.
Okay. And then when we consider the newer interior designer, maybe they're not as comfortable to add that condition that if you don't answer me and make your approvals within 2 weeks. I mean, I don't know. Your firm is very big and you've been around for many years, so you're probably not using, or are you using a software platform? Because what I often say to the designers is if they're using, like, for instance, MyDoma, who is one of our sponsors, then the client can go in and look. If the client, if you don't feel that you're, as a newer designer, that you can say, hey, if you don't answer me for 2 weeks, you're going to pay an extra $250 for 2 hours of my time to refamiliarize myself. The MyDoma is the perfect way for that client to have access, right? So, I think what I always like to do is a way for all levels of businesses to achieve their streamlined processes. And so a big firm can say, yeah, you're going to pay me extra to pull this in front of me. And a little firm maybe just make it so that it isn't this big deal to pull it in front of you, right?
Yeah, and I think, you called us a big firm. I don't feel like we're a big firm, but I feel like the client concerns are going to be the same whether you're a big firm or little firm. They just want to make sure. They want transparency. They want to know kind of an idea of what to expect to pay. And as long as you're just clear what's going to result in additional services, then I think it's a little bit easier to have that conversation when it does occur. One thing that came up past years was the client who texts all times of night. Like we had one that was a doctor. She'd get off her shift and come home and see construction blow up. We'd wake up and there's like 10 text messages. And so it's kind of like, okay, we need to
I was already up with an infant, so sometimes it was okay, but yeah.
But it's not really okay, right? Because
no, it's not.
Even if you're awake, Theresa, with the infant, so maybe the first text you can answer because the infant is sleeping soundly and you're in your rocking chair. But the third text, maybe the baby starts crying and now all of a sudden you can't answer. So what did you do? What did you guys do?
I think we set the boundaries and just said, you need to limit communication by email because that is how we are going to have a record of any changes or concerns that you have. Because if you send a text message and I don't see it till the next day, I can't.
Or you erase the text message. Email is there so that there's record of what was agreed upon.
Yeah.
Have you, now in that scenario, here you are, you're dealing also probably with a pretty, high level alpha personality. Do you get pushback from an alpha personality that says, I don't care what you like. I work, 25-hour days and I need to reach you when I reach you? Or is it that's how I communicated. I didn't know it was a problem.
I think at the end of the day, you need to understand kind of what's at the root of their concern. Yeah. I think for the most part, they just want to be heard. And so we've kind of understood clients who can sometimes be like volcanoes, they just want to erupt and be heard, and then they'll calm down. And so that's where I've taken over most of the communication with the client because Theresa can get emotionally involved and take things personally where I kind of can hear it. I'll let them explode and then I'll just let them know that they're heard. I may not have a solution in the moment, but let them know that I've heard them and we're going to work towards a solution. And it may take some time, but at the end of the day, they want to know that they're heard, they have their concerns and they're being listened to, even though you may not have the solution on the spot.
Right. And the thing with the alpha client, I think that you can have that. We've had some aggressive clients, male and female. But I think in the end, if you're going to have a sensitive conversation, it needs to be done either in person or by phone.
Right.
And,
100%
there are just times where anything can be taken out of context and you can read in tone. And I just said, if we were going to have that conversation, I think it should happen by phone and just say, hey, can we limit the text, whatever, because Theresa isn't sleeping or, whatever it is, or after 6 p.m., we will not answer text. Right. But what we're in the process of doing right now, in addition to the coffee table book, is a welcome packet, like a formal welcome packet.
Love it.
And that's a process. And I think it's a lot of the things that we've learned, over the years, but just having something that says, hey, thank you for choosing us, and remind them why they did choose you. And then say, these are, this is our contact information. This is how we're going to proceed. Here's a checklist. And these are our rules.
Right. Right. I agree. And the thing is, what's interesting to me is there's 2 points in here I want to make. The first is to going back to having the difficult conversation, either in person or on the telephone. 110% agree. And the other thing is there's three things. And the other thing is how you guys as partners in your business recognize that John is more adept at those conversations, because it's the same with Vin and I. I am much more adept at those conversations than he is. And for different reasons. In other words, he's not sensitive in the standpoint that he's going to internalize it. It sounds like that maybe you do, Theresa, right? He just gets more mad. He's just like, who the heck do you think you are? And I'm like, well, I feel that way too, but we can't say it that way. You know? Right. And so I have a saying in our business is, do we want to be right or do we want to get what we want? And what we always want is a positive outcome for both our customer and for us. And so that means I might have to suck it up a little bit in that conversation. And I definitely need to give them the space to have their explosion and to express their concerns to me and to come back to them just exactly the way you described, John, and say, I heard you and I'm on this and we're going to figure this out. But you cannot do it by email, because you read that one way and they read it another way, and you just make the problem. What happens is a lesser experienced entrepreneur is nervous for the conversation. And so they think by doing it by email, it's easier for them, but it almost always results in another layer of miscommunication.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Totally.
Yes.
Totally.
Yes.
And I will add on top of that, we just moved into a new office space, about 3,800 square feet. We had a room that we didn't know what to do with. We have turned into a gym, and now we have a office punching bag for our therapy. So that might be useful for some of your listeners.
I love it.
I love it. Punching bag with punching gloves is really kind of nice.
That's fun. I love that. Right. And so, oh God, the other thing you said in there, I want to make sure we highlight, is the welcome packet. And I think that is so awesome. And it's funny because so many newer designers now that I'm interacting with through the coaching and through meeting at the different markets and so forth are really grasping the value of doing this. I think many of the designers that have been in business like yourself 10 and 15 years, you come to it because you're like, okay, these are all the places the project goes haywire. Let's address it at the beginning. But I do feel that there is a big movement now, and maybe it's by the benefit of this podcast and all the other interior design podcasts out there, that people as a community are talking about it more. And it's such a simple document to do. And I love the dual purpose of it. The first purpose is, welcome into my process. I'm so happy you're here. This is awesome, right? But then the second process is, and this is my process. This is how we do it here, right? Think about when you got the 4 kids. When you go to school, you like the welcome packet, right? Yep. And it's all shiny and it's got everything in it, but it also says, and here's the days your kids will be at school. This is the times they will be there. These are the rules that we play by.
And I think, and it's funny too, when you bring up the kids like that structure. They like to know what's expected of them. And I think, when you're talking about all of this uncertainty and that the general public doesn't know what we do, clients are just like the children. They want to have this. They want to have the structure. They want to know, okay, well, at this point, I am now responsible for, reviewing with the designer. And then now I have to sign off on these things. And once I sign off, if I go back, it's additional services. We've moved past that. You signed off and we've already proceeded with the next step, and you want to go back and dilly-dally and look at this one design problem 1,000 more ways, which, that's what design is. I mean, there's not just one solution, right? For everything.
I love it. And I'm telling you, I started the beginning of the conversation by saying exactly this. You take for granted what you do and the way it happens and all the steps that happen within it because it's what you do. But the rest of us do not have a depth, even the scratch of the understanding of it. And when you explain it to us, then I know how to perform my role in this process.
Yes.
right?
And I think that's what everyone wants. They want some clarity. They want to know, everyone usually wants to know what's expected of them. So, yeah.
And the thing is, to me, is I'm the girl that is, I might choose to spend more money on something, but I want to know ahead of time when that happens. So if I know that I'm entitled to 2 revisions, say, right? Yep. I know that I'm, here I am, I'm an A+, competitive achiever here. So I'm going to be like, I'm going to basically make sure that our communications are so good and I'm so clear on my end that I never require more than 2 communications with my designer, right? However, what I love about knowing is when that second revision comes through on that one thing that really is important to me, I'm not in the dark. I'm not feeling like I'm taking advantage of you if I ask you to do it a third time. I know I'm going to exchange money for it. This time it's important to me. Here's the money. Do it again for me. That's very clean. It's very clean.
It is clean. And yeah, John says, I love contracts. But what I will say is you are also a small business owner. And that's one of the reasons why I love working for small business owners, because they understand that there are sometimes, when you get a client who doesn't work or maybe hasn't worked their entire life or whatever it is, and contracts are words, they don't really mean anything and they don't understand the cost of business, but someone who's out there hustling every day, bringing it in and making it rain for all the employees' salaries, there's pressure there and you understand it. But I will say that not every client understands it.
Understood. And that's why you need to be clear up front. And I have to tell you, my tip for when you have that client that you're working with that is a little with their head in the clouds for whatever their background reason is, right? They've, like you said, there's people we've met that have never worked before. They come for money. Their primary home, whatever, it's a partner, whatever is money, whatever it is, right? But there's always somebody in their world that works. We had a client one time at Window Works. I'm going to tell you what, honest to God, over an 2.5 year period, came in and out of my showroom, each time spending at minimum 25 and 30 minutes and sometimes 2 and 3 hours saying, I have this project and I have these couple of windows and I want to look at fabrics. And then 2 or 3 months later, come in again and say, well, I think I want to do shades now and not Roman shades. What do you have in roller shades? Honest to God, this went on 2.5 years. Okay. Wow. At one point, about the 6-month point, I said, you keep asking me for opinions on what you should do. And I'm looking at a picture on your iPhone that's, 1.5 inches big. How about the free shop at home service that I offer? Why don't we do that? Right. Yeah. I'm thinking I'm going to get in the place and now I'm going to close it. Right. Get in there. Turns out, no, we're way in construction. This is 6 months after she came into the thing and it sticks still. And I'm like, whoa. Now, long story short. Okay. Long story long. It's her final coming into my showroom at the 2.5 year mark. She comes in again, but this time she doesn't ask about those windows. First time in 2.5 years. She asks me about windows for a different home because I knew she owned 2 homes. I said to her, what happened to the other windows that we were talking about for the other project? She goes, oh, I just ended up calling somebody in local and they just did it. And we did some roller shades. Well, I'm going to tell you who got booted out of my showroom. I'm going to tell you what. I am not joking. I'm going to tell you what. I don't often do that, but that is that moment, that glorious moment that you talked about. I looked at her and I said, what? And she goes, we just, it's so below what you do. I just ended up putting roller shades. And I literally said to her, I said, this really, really disappoints me. I said, because I'm actually in business to sell roller shades and door draperies. Right. I said, and I spent 2.5 years talking to you about this project. And she goes, well, not that big of a deal. I said, no, you're mistaken. It is a big deal. I said, it's a very big deal. And now you just walked in here and asked me for an opinion on the next project? I said, why? So I can educate you for the next 2.5 years and then you can order it from Blinds to Go? Exactly. I'm sorry. No. Yeah. And you know what? She really didn't understand me. And she was like looking hurt. And I said to her, your husband's in real estate, right? And she said, yes, because this woman does not work. And I said, so here's what happened. Your husband showed somebody a home over and over again, a different one this week, that week, and spent 2.5 years trying to find the perfect home for a client. And then you ran into them at a dinner party and they bought from, the realtor down the block because it was so easy.
That's a perfect
I'm
analogy.
Sorry. She looked at me like I just said, I'm sorry. I have no interest at all in helping you pick the fabric for this new project.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I love that.
No,
That's awesome.
I mean, it's crazy. It's, and the thing is, but you do need to learn that, right? You need to be able to, that doesn't happen the first day in business. You have to understand your value and that somebody, and so the point is that even if your direct consumer is not, educated, like you said, in the sense of understanding the value of what you're providing, there's somebody in their life that works very hard for the money that they're out there spending, and you relate it to them and they'll get it.
And not too dissimilar from what you described, we had a similar pain point years ago. This was during the recession where we used to do furniture proposals thinking that we would make money and sell them the furniture. We give a proposal and they ended up buying it themselves online. We just did all this work to put together, the ingredients for this room. And in the past few years, what we started to do is charge for our furniture proposal and say, look, you're going to pay us. We're going to give you a shopping list and you can go out and buy it.
If they don't want us to procure it.
If they don't want us to procure it, you got to pay us for the proposal. But if you buy it through us, we're going to put that cost towards the proposal.
Or a portion of the cost,
towards the cost of everything. And we tell them you're not going to pay more than retail, because that's the main concern is no one wants to pay more than retail.
Right.
But we're clever with our designer discounts. So, that was an issue of when we got burned from the furniture standpoint, and what we've done now. And more often than not, they do decide and see the value in us procuring because we offer the white glove delivery. We partner with a third party warehouse.
They're not the ones who are stuck returning something that has a scratch on it. You know, I mean, there's value, and you have to explain that to them. I mean, do you want to spend 2 hours on the phone with a manufacturer to get it back? I mean, if you do, go for it.
Right.
But you're still going to pay me for the information that I'm giving you.
Right.
If I tell you, because they're with all of the online stuff. I mean, this is where you have to be business minded and say, the business has changed. I mean, when I worked at a high-end firm in Naples, Florida, there just wasn't that the internet there to, I mean, it existed, but people just weren't shopping you like that.
Right.
So I think that my point is, know that you still have to make money for that work that is done. So if it's, $2,000, $3,000, whatever it is, say, if you want this list so you can go shop it, you are at least going to pay me the time that it takes me or my, design assistant to put this in a nice spreadsheet for you.
Exactly.
So,
and does that mean that do you ahead of time? Because if you put that list together, in order for them to purchase it on their own, it has to be retail product. So do you just know the client that is probably not going to push you back and you can specify to the trade product, or do you ask them ahead of time? Or are you talking about you're going to need a sofa that's 80 by this and you tell me if I'm going to procure, in which case how does that work?
Yeah. We tell them, we ask them ahead of time. We say, are you a type of person who likes to shop? Do you want to go sit in, 500 different sofas? Do you want that? Then we're just kind of giving you a look, and we're giving you the basic parameters, the dimensions, things like that. We can give you a suggestion, and images on the mood boards that you can kind of go off of. But we ask those questions, and it's usually the client that says, I want to be able to, go online and purchase this. And then there's the other client that says, no, I don't want to worry about all of that. You. Yeah. Everything comes in at on one day and we're done.
Okay. So you will do projects one way or another, depending on the client and the interaction and the parameters. Correct.
It really depends on the client and what they want. I'm not going to turn down a great project because someone wants to shop. Mm-hmm. I'm just going to protect myself so that I am still being paid for what I'm producing.
But I will say, in recent memory, we had one client who took the proposal and shopped it on her own, and at the end of it said, I wish I hired you.
No. Actually, she came back, and I love it. She came back. We're still, close. There was no hard feelings on my part. She was another small business owner, and she said, hey, that's a hefty white glove fee. That's I'm not ready to pay that. And I said, okay, well, she paid me for the proposal. She went and she did it, but she ended up coming back for a bunch of sources, items that were sourced from trade only. And that she thought she could get, or she couldn't, I mean, so it was a discussion, but she also just realized that she wasn't going to find a better deal,
right?
On those things. And I think that, people want to feel like they're getting a deal.
Right.
So,
well, there's all different levels of consumers out there. And I think your point is, the biggest point is that understand ahead of time what you're doing. And if you are going to turn over a shopping list, you get paid for creating that shopping list.
Yes, exactly.
And then it doesn't matter. Then there's no hard feelings on either side. It's like, here's your shopping list. I created it for you, right?
Exactly. And they know that, they expect it. And a lot of times it's not because they don't have, sometimes it's just clients who like to shop, like they want to go out and be there and see things and do that, so you say, okay, is that your personality? Is that what you want to do? And let's hash this out and figure out how we want to approach it.
Right.
But in the end, I'm not going to turn down I mean, I think maybe that's where, we're a little bit different than the traditional model of, what was interior design, where it's just the, the markup on the furniture and maybe a small design fee. We have big design fees and then, potential markup if we procure it, but it has to be the right project.
Well, and I love what you just said there. We have big design fees because that's where your superpower is. You're the designer. That's what you're doing. And that's what we can't do without you. So charge me for that, right?
Yeah.
Love it. I love it. Oh my goodness. I could talk to you guys for another hour.
Thank you. And I told you this at High Point. I just think that you do such a great job of drawing all of these things out of all of your guests. You're awesome.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I am very interested. That's the thing. I really want to know the nuances of each person's business because, there's a model, right? And there's a goal, and there is something that we all strive for, but we all kind of can get there in a different way, and different experiences shape our philosophies and how we get there and how we stand in our space and we do what we're going to do. So I just love it. Thank you so much for spending your time with me today, you guys.
Thank you for having us. It's been awesome.
Alrighty, so first off, for any of us that have not yet read The Business of Design by Heath Granite, I think we're all going to have to get on that, including me. John must be about the fourth or fifth designer to specifically mention how instrumental this book was in helping them shape their design business. So, yes, universe, I'm listening. Are you guys listening? I have to get on that, all right? Now, next, you heard how important it is to both John and Theresa to include 3D visuals for every single project. They discussed how valuable it is for the client to really see what their home will look like so there are no surprises later when it's way too late. If this text, Sketchup, and Revit, and all the others are unfamiliar to you, please go back and listen to episode number 311 with Jason Byrne. As I had mentioned during the show, Jason is a designer out of Australia, and he is also a professor of design, and he very nicely walked us through all the various tech tools and software that are available to help you run your interior design firm, okay? And if John and Theresa didn't convince you of the value of these pro tools enough, go back and listen to Darla Powell's episode, her second episode with us, number 330. She specifically explained how using these tools elevated her design game, and it helped her attract a higher level of clientele to her business, okay? Now, the other thing is that you heard both John and Theresa describe that it wasn't not so easy in the beginning to say no to a client, to say no. You don't get to say, never mind, I don't want the 3D part of your service, or whatever it is that your client pushes you back on, right? But you did hear them tell us how important it is to stand your ground. When you know a part of your process is critical to the success of a project, don't back down. Instead, explain how, in your experience, I love that line. This is a great line to use on a client. in my experience. Okay. So explain to them how, in your experience, you know this is key to a positive outcome for both you and them, and that you know that you want the very best outcome for them. So if you work with me, this is going to be included. All right. And we did hear Theresa say, the same as I always tell you, you have to know what you're talking about in order to tell someone something is non-negotiable. You must know why you do it. You must set up your systems to a T, know what they are, communicate them, convey the reason and the why for them, and then that's it. They can take it or leave it. And to John's point as well, which, by the way, is the exact lesson in the first chapter of my first book, The Making of a Well-Designed Business, when you have established your company mission and your core values for yourself, for your team, and for your clients to know, it makes it so much easier to say, this is how we do it here. And therefore, no questions asked. Okay? It's all good stuff. I love it. I love it. I love it a lot. And I have to say, if you ever have the opportunity to meet John and Theresa in person, to find that they might be on a panel at something that you're going to, don't miss it. They are an outstanding couple. They are so warm, and they are genuinely hysterical and lots of fun to be around. So I promise you, if you see them on a panel or at a design event, make sure to go. All right? Now, before we go, be sure to go back and check out my friend Charles Pavarini's new furniture line at swaim-inc.com/our-designers. Okay, that's Swaim, SWAIM-inc.com/our-designers. Maybe something in the line will be perfect for your next project. And as always, if you have learned something from the show, from a colleague, I would love it if you would do two things. One would be to write a review in iTunes. I love it when you do that, and I appreciate it so much you can't understand it. And second, tell me and the guest about it in the comments on my Instagram for that particular episode. Many of your colleagues start the interview nervous. They're not sure if they have something of value to share. And we absolutely all know that every single one has always ended up sharing some nugget, if not several ideas and tips, just like John and Theresa did. But I promise you, it means the world to me to see a review, and it means the world to them to see your comments on Instagram. Okay? So on Instagram, please follow me at luannniagara.com. So it's that time. What is your takeaway? What decision will you make to impact your business, your productivity, your profitability, your happiness? Decide on it. Do it. Decide to be excellent. Thank you so much for joining me again today. This podcast is a production of WindowWorks, your resource for custom window treatments and awnings. To learn how we can help you on your next interior design project, go to www.windowworks-nj.com. And if you're interested in working with me on your business, either through masterminds or one-on-one coaching, or you want to know how to get my book, The Making of a Well-Designed Business, or you just want to know what's going on in the podcast land and where I'm going to be, all of that is found at luannniagara.com. Thank you so much. Have an excellent day.